It's amazing how one little conversation can spark all sorts of new ideas about an old idea. Well, that's what happened in the conversation at the very end of my New Zealand visit for Too Much Punch for Judy, where a film company had discovered at the back of my book, Too Much Punch for Judy, a little extract from Quenchers turned into a story. And there they are all in Quenchers at Epping Youth Theatre, my Happy Soap story. Which was originally, had little lovely designs by Ryan Gilby from the Youth Theatre. King Grig was the centre of it, and I decided to make a big change for what was going to be the cartoon film and the play that I wrote for Oakland's Youth Theatre. I changed it from one of the lads in the class who had actually played the king to another one, Andy Huff, who had a great name for a huffy king. So he became King Huff. And there is the poster that we did for Happy Soap, the play that we did. It also brought together something else from Race to be Seen, which was always a desire to involve people from differing abilities. So we had a local school called the Cedar School for complex special educational needs and physical difficulties. I developed a fantastic relationship with Ali Garner there, and we had in this production probably the highlight of my work with them, where Jimmy Hume played the central character of the King Huff, in the first production of Wacky Soap. I remember it so well. His cheekiness was fantastic. The rude queen, you can see Claire, who was originally in Lethal in the Box playing Younger Sedge, became a rude queen. And then the little villagers, played by all sorts of people, and one of them was Steve Trent. And I'm going to mention something else about Steve, because Steve and I developed something called Culture Burst, which we did with OYT. Which was to introduce people to going to the theatre and having workshops in, which was a very important part of the youth theatre's development. And Love Me Do, which we put on together with Happy Soap, was produced by Chris Ford and was part of that culture burst of people doing their own work. And it was a really, really important part of our work at the youth theatre. So what changes did I make from that little story to turn it into a play? Well, firstly, I wanted to make it have some kind of stylistic character. I didn't want to just tell the story in a straightforward way. So I made the king a rhyming king. So everything he did was in rhyming couplets. A very odd thing for me to do, because I would always have hated theatre that was in rhyming form. But I felt this really would work and make him seem a different character. And I made the queen a kind of rough, tough queen who was a bit foul-mouthed, and it just added some character to these people. I also wanted to give the chorus a fair amount to do. So we gave them one song. Brian came and wrote a wonderful Happy Soap rap, and probably we should have done more of that. But we were short of time. We entered it for the Tottenham Drama Festival. You can see we didn't win, but we did pretty well. I think we were third. So there's us with Happy Ever After got 80 points. The winners 85, 83. So we were third. So we weren't all about winning. And we were still getting reviewed in the TES. And how helpful was this? Being reviewed in the Times Z supplement, in our local papers, just for being able to say independent people having good things to say about our work. It wasn't us blowing our own trumpet. It added to what we were doing in a sense of national importance for drawing attention to ourselves. And also putting ourselves out there with a production that probably wasn't our strongest. But we entered the Lloyds Bank Challenge again. We'd entered with Too Much Punch for Judy. We hadn't got in with that. We'd entered with the year before with Hard to Swallow and got in with that. And here's an important thing. When you enter these things, you do get criticised. And I got criticised for the script. But it did not set me up well for the script that I'd come back to write a few years later when I was doing Wacky Soap. These are the comments. The energy and enthusiasm of the performance is terrific. There is a wonderfully clear through line on the story. Great. I was gaining confidence as a writer after using other people's words to use my own. With such a secure basis, you can now start to explore further what you've got, and broadly speaking, there are two things to think about. I would never, I don't think, have thought of these ideas. You can take the whole idea of the send-up parody pantomime further, and we did. Play it broader, more shiny, more happy endingy. This will enable the storyteller, who is one of the script's best creations, and he was further developed 10 years later when we did it, to become even more grumpy about having to tell a story about such stupidly happy people. He seems to be a writer of jingles who wants to be a Strindberg. What a lovely quote. The more extreme you play this, the more fun you'll be able to have with undercutting it. I wonder also if there are sharper characters to be drawn outside the royal family. There's no clearly defined villain to the piece, which is sort of the point, I suppose. But it would be nice to beef up the salesperson, which I did later on, and give a couple of clearly defined sidekicks who would traditionally, of course, be stupid, which I did. You can also explore more oblique ways of approaching it from the point of view of characters other than the royal family. Suddenly switch the scene into somebody else's house, and then invented Tom Common for the later production. It's a pity that there isn't more music in the show. Later on we did that. I found the whole setup, and then this is about Oakland, so this is the kind of support that we had in a school that valued drama and valued what we were doing, and I can't emphasise this too much. We had a head teacher, Pete Hollis, who really supported drama and valued what we were doing. And we gave it prominence because we did these new productions. I've never understood why people choose to do things like Grease, which don't feed into the curriculum. We were doing drama theatre that would feed into the curriculum. So those who were involved in youth theatre productions would go into their classes and generate work around with other people so that they would then have the skills. And we'd also have kids coming in to watch the productions, and we did en masse, who would see these really well performed productions, and they would then be able to emulate them in their drama lessons. It put our results up. So if you're doing school productions, yes, there's a place for Grease, but if you're the only drama teacher, which at that point I was, it's much more important to be doing stuff that is going to enrich the curriculum. So we got the support, but I'd argue we deserved it as well. And what the NT person said was, I found the whole setup at Oakland's really encouraging. There seems to be a dedication to theatre as something that is neither purely educational in a narrow academic sense, nor elitist. It also makes a great change to meet a head teacher who, far from just tolerating drama, is actively and enthusiastically supportive. So we did a Happy Soap production which set the wheels in motion for a later production which was also inspired by some professional work that was going to happen. But I knew that wasn't my main thing at this time. I was involved in two other projects, one of which I thought was going to be really big, and one of which I thought was an interesting thing and I ought to try. I'm going to talk about both of those in the next two episodes.